We've all been there, right? You spend, I don't know, an hour crafting the perfect AI image prompt,
Oh, yeah.
and the result you get, it looks truly amazing. It's exactly what you wanted.
Right.
But then you ask for a really simple second version, just one small tweak.
And it all falls apart.
Completely.
Yeah.
Suddenly the fonts drift into something unrecognizable. The colors completely shift away from your brand. The whole layout just breaks. It's this deeply universal frustration with AI design.
It really is the worst. I mean, you finally get that perfect aesthetic look, right? And then
Yeah.
the AI just seemingly forgets everything you just taught it. It's like you're back to square one. But today, we actually fixed that problem.
We're finally solving it.
We are. We're going to reverse engineer a perfect design. We'll turn it into an automated, completely reusable AI system. And we're doing this entirely using Claude Design.
Welcome to the deep dive. We have a very clear roadmap for you today. We're exploring a specific 6-step workflow. We'll move from just a single reference image, and we'll end up with a completely foolproof visual system. I really want to take this slow today. I want to understand the underlying logic here, how this actually works under the hood.
Yeah, I think we need some context first before we get into the steps. So there are several cheaper Chinese AI models available today.
Right, highly capable ones.
Very capable, incredibly fast.
Yeah.
But Claude Design has one massive advantage over them. It can study a really good visual design and actually find the mathematical rules hidden behind the pixels.
Oh.
Yeah. And then it builds a reusable framework from that math.
Yeah.
Which means you never have to start from zero again.
Okay, so let's talk about that starting point. Step 1. We obviously need to feed the AI some sort of inspiration.
Right.
I assume we don't just give it a blank canvas and say, do your best.
No.
We must upload a very clear visual reference. So it could be a vintage poster or maybe a modern website. But what kind of instructions are we actually giving it when we upload that image?
So we give Claude a highly detailed brief. We're giving it very strict factual instructions to follow. We tell it to deeply analyze the overall layout. We ask it to study the visual hierarchy. We really want it looking at the typography very closely.
Like the specific fonts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It needs to check specific font sizes, the weights of the text. It also checks the spacing and the structural alignment of the whole page.
So it's breaking down the actual anatomy of the design.
Yeah.
It analyzes the specific use of empty space. It looks at signature visual details across the canvas. Subtle things, right? Like borders or drop shadows.
All of it.
But how do we control what it actually takes?
Yeah.
Because if it just copies it, that's a problem.
Right. So we give Claude a very strict boundary here. We explicitly tell it not to copy the original brand.
Okay.
It must never copy the original text exactly. Instead, we have it separate the visual rules into 2 distinct buckets.
2 buckets.
Yeah. Bucket 1 holds the elements that must stay consistent, the fixed stuff. Bucket 2 holds the elements that flex with new content. And this separation generates our very first draft.
I have to say, I've tried something vaguely similar before, and the AI usually just ends up ripping off the original logo anyway.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
So how do we ensure the AI is actually learning the style? We really need to prevent actual plagiarism from happening here.
It really comes down to the level of abstraction we're asking for.
Okay.
Claude is specifically analyzing the spatial relationships on the page. It's looking for the underlying geometric logic. All right. It is not looking at the actual colored pixels. It ignores the original creative content entirely.
Yeah.
It just simply maps how the different elements interact with each other.
So it steals the underlying blueprint, not the actual house.
Exactly. It just wants the architectural math. It completely leaves the original furniture behind.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So we have this first generated draft.
Yeah?
But in my experience, the first draft is rarely perfect. It usually gets us, I don't know, maybe 80% of the way there.
If you're lucky, yeah.
Right. And if we extract the rules right now, we're basically extracting flawed rules. Honestly, I still wrestle with prompt drift myself.
Oh, we all do.
It's incredibly hard to manage over multiple iterations. You fix one thing, another thing breaks.
And that is exactly why this next phase exists. Step 2. We do not extract the rules from that rough first draft.
Okay.
We create a separate, completely reusable Claude skill instead. We call this specific utility the design loop.
The design loop.
Yeah. It performs 4 specific, very rigorous review passes on the draft.
Tell me more about those specific review passes. What exactly is it looking for in the very first pass?
So pass 1 specifically checks the overall composition.
Okay.
It's looking for structural balance and a clear focal point. It basically wants to know where the eye travels first when you look at it.
Right, the visual anchor.
Exactly. Then pass 2 focuses heavily on typography and structural hierarchy.
Okay.
It asks if the main headline has enough visual impact. It checks for strict font consistency across the entire design.
So it's actively critiquing its own previous work.
Very critically, yeah.
That's fascinating. And then pass 3?
Pass 3 is all about spacing and exact alignment. It checks the margins, the invisible grids. It makes sure no specific area feels too visually crowded.
It's acting like an art director.
Basically, yeah.
So what happens in the final pass of this loop?
Pass 4 is the final visual consistency check. It verifies the exact color palette is applied correctly. It checks that repeated details match perfectly throughout the entire canvas.
Wow.
Yeah, and we run this loop on the first draft inside our original chat.
Oh, I see.
We keep the core visual concept completely intact. We just systematically polish the weak areas.
Yeah.
We just do this until we have a flawless source design.
I understand the function of refining the draft. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the mechanical setup here. Why build this design loop as a completely separate skill? Why not just prompt the main chat to review its own work right then and there?
Because you want to completely isolate this specific function. By isolating it, you create a permanent utility tool.
Oh.
You never have to rebuild this critique system again. You never have to re-explain the 4 passes for future design projects.
They're just ready.
It just sits there, perfectly ready to work. You just call on it whenever a new draft needs polishing.
Build the tool once, reuse it forever without retyping instructions.
Exactly. You save yourself just hours of repetitive frustration. It automates the absolute most tedious part of the creative process.
So after this rigorous loop, we finally have a perfect source design.
Yes.
But right now, it is just a beautiful flat image, essentially. We need to extract its soul before we can actually automate it.
Right.
We have to translate all that visual beauty into usable data. How do we actually pull the rules out? What is step 3?
So we call this specific extraction the design DNA.
Design DNA.
Yeah. Claude analyzes the flawless design across 10 specific vectors.
10.
10 of them.
Yeah.
And this analysis is incredibly thorough. It is deeply mathematical. It looks closely at the typography, the overall layout. It maps out the grid and the specific spacing used. It measures proportions alongside the entire color system.
It must also map the negative space, right? That's huge in design.
Oh, definitely. Yes, it charts negative space and all the little visual details. It outlines the hierarchy and the distinct signature choices.
Okay.
And finally, it clearly defines the specific design refusals. Doing all this, it's like stacking Lego blocks of data.
That's a great way to put it.
It just builds a complete structural profile of the aesthetic.
I think that analogy is perfectly accurate. It really is like building blocks.
Yeah.
But these resulting rules, they must be completely measurable, correct?
Yes.
But they can't just be vague, artistic suggestions to the AI. Like, we cannot just say something like, use bold typography or make it pop.
No, make it pop will ruin everything.
Right. The rule must be rooted in strict mathematics.
Absolutely. The source material gives a really great factual example of this. Instead of vague instructions, the AI actually writes a strict formula. It says, the main headline should take 35% to 45% of the content width.
Oh, wow.
Right? It measures everything in precise percentages and strict ratios. And this extraction process typically yields about 10 to 15 core rules like that.
That is so precise.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to one term you mentioned, though.
Sure.
You brought up something called design refusals.
Ah, yes.
What exactly are they, and why are they a necessary part of the DNA? I really want to understand their specific function in this whole system.
Refusals are essentially negative constraints for the AI. They clearly define what the design should actively avoid doing.
Okay.
So they might permanently ban specific colors from being used, like never use neon green.
Right.
They might forbid the use of overly busy layouts or center-aligned text. They actively prevent the core visual identity from breaking down. They keep the AI from making, messy creative leaps.
Defining the boundaries is just as crucial as painting the picture.
Sometimes knowing what not to do is actually more important. It just keeps the automated system safely on the rails.
Okay, so we've successfully extracted this mathematical DNA now. We have our 10 to 15 rules. But isolated DNA still needs a proper host to survive. We must organize these scattered rules into a master file. We have to build the actual structural system.
This is step 4 and 5.
Right. So how do we organize these core rules?
We organize the DNA into a 12-part AI design system. It basically becomes a massive, highly structured technical document.
Okay.
It includes all the foundational elements, all the specific typography rules. It clearly maps the grid, the spacing, and the scale. It defines reusable components alongside fixed versus flexible rules.
It also outlines usage rules and a strict consistency checklist, right?
Exactly. And then we have to save this entire systematic document. We save it as a CLAUDE.md file in the project root.
Let me quickly clarify that specific term for our listeners who might not be developers. A CLAUDE.md file is basically a hidden rule book the AI reads before it starts any work.
That is exactly what it is in practice. It completely preconditions the AI before you even type a prompt.
It just knows.
It just knows. And when you realize the true potential here, whoa, imagine scaling to 1 billion queries.
Seriously?
You could apply this master rulebook across an entire enterprise's design output. It guarantees total brand consistency globally, completely without human oversight. Every single generated image instantly follows the corporate math.
The scale of that is genuinely hard to wrap your head around. It's staggering.
It's massive.
But I do see a potential practical issue here.
Okay, what's that?
When we start generating a completely new design, things naturally change.
Sure.
What happens if a rigid rule contradicts the new text content we want to use? Like, what if the new headline is just way too long for the allocated grid?
That exact tension is why the system is structurally split. The CLAUDE.md file explicitly separates the rules into 2 categories.
Okay.
It separates the fixed rules from the flexible rules. Fixed rules strictly protect the core visual identity, the absolute must-haves.
Right.
But the flexible rules, they gently adapt to content lengths or new formats. The AI basically knows which rules it is allowed to dynamically bend.
Fixed rules lock the identity. Flexible ones let the content breathe.
Yes. Beautifully put. It perfectly prevents the design from shattering under pressure. It gives the AI structured freedom to actually solve layout problems.
Okay, but a theoretical system is honestly pretty useless on its own.
True.
It is only valid until it survives contact with a completely different format. We have to stress test this master file in the real world.
Step 6.
Right, step 6. How do we prove that the CLAUDE.md file actually works?
So this final phase is the ultimate consistency test. We purposefully prompt Claude to create a completely new poster.
Okay.
But this time, we demand a square social media poster. The specific dimensions are 1080 by 1080 pixels.
Oh, that's tricky.
Very tricky. And the theoretical event is called Midnight Frequencies. It features an electronic artist named Reusable.
So we are moving from a tall vertical canvas to a square canvas. The system must adapt all its rules to this new geometric constraint. And it must do this without losing the original visual identity. That seems like an incredibly difficult leap for an AI.
It really does.
Yeah.
But the outcome from the source material is genuinely fascinating. Claude successfully scales the typography hierarchy specifically for the square format.
Wow.
It mathematically calculates and adjusts the negative space perfectly. It keeps the distinct accent colors completely intact. It manages to look like the exact same brand campaign, just square.
But what happens if the math just doesn't fit? Say a headline width rule is simply way too strict for a square canvas. It has to break at some point, right?
If a rule fails, Claude actually reports it back to you.
Really?
Yeah. Claude provides a detailed visual consistency report. It points out exactly which mathematical rule caused the layout conflict.
That is incredibly helpful.
It's amazing. This feedback loop allows the user to easily update the CLAUDE.md file. You can slightly tweak those flexible rules for future square generations.
I'm still really hung up on the spatial translation part of this. How does the AI know how to handle a completely different shape?
Yeah.
I mean, moving from a tall vertical poster to a perfect square is jarring.
Yeah.
How does it arrange the elements without just squishing them all together?
It does not rely on visual memorization at all. Claude relies entirely on the mathematical ratios we extracted earlier.
Yeah.
It looks deeply at the grid relationships that are stored in the DNA. It doesn't try to just force the original layout into a new box.
Yeah.
It fundamentally recalculates the math for the new specific dimensions.
It translates the core math to fit the new canvas perfectly.
Exactly. It just becomes an exercise in pure geometry at that point.
Right.
It solves the square canvas as a mathematical equation. Sponsor.
So let us zoom out for a second and look at the big idea here. We really need to summarize this philosophical shift for the listener
It's a big one.
because this completely changes how we approach AI generation.
Yeah.
You no longer have to start from a terrifying blank prompt every single time.
Right.
The structural pipeline we talked about changes everything about visual creation.
It really gives you a highly repeatable scientific process.
Exactly. You start by providing a strong visual reference. You rigorously run that draft through the isolated design loop.
Yep.
You systematically extract the mathematical design DNA. You organize and build the master CLAUDE.md file. And finally, you run the consistency testing on new formats. This means you can turn one single spark of inspiration into a permanent, scalable visual engine.
It really is a profound change to the workflow. Treating design as measurable data completely changes the creative process. It totally removes the frustrating guesswork from generating daily assets. 2-sec silence.
I want to leave you with one final thought today. If an AI can perfectly map our signature design choices into pure math, and if it can flawlessly replicate them across any format, does visual originality just become a highly customizable algorithm? I invite you to try extracting the DNA of your favorite poster this week. Feed it into the system and see what the underlying math actually looks like.